if I'm being completely honest, and if you can see from the stack of clothes and the dreary day and the bags beneath my eyes, past few months have been quite turbulent. The past few months have offered different challenges to then not only expose the weaknesses I have as a person, as a worker, as a teacher, but also interestingly reveal the things that I'm still capable of doing despite all the issues that have occurred. Just one thing that's really good to know as a person. I'm really good that this is at 23 and not at 53 and whatnot. I went on thinking about that and obviously going back to the idea of how nations or just any general given community of people who choose to be under the same banner work. I think one of the fundamental measures of how we can, like, say, rate country, nation, community, whatever group is not only how well they can do, like their ceiling, the ceiling, raise the roof, but also how well they can manage with issues, or how well, particularly you'd say in like a country that runs more on, like, say, free market capitalism, enunciate, and particularly how such countries maybe provide for or create possibilities for the individual to actually get back on their feet or to actually stop the snowball of issues. Easy one, like debt. Like, how easy is it for one to fall into debt, and how do the lenders act around people who say are liable towards gaining more debt? Are they more liable to just give them more credit rating, or just say, oh, this is serious, I can't enable someone who hasn't fixed up the other problems yet? You think of, say, for example, lack of education maybe leads to something like other issues, like not thinking about safety or not looking about, say, safe sex, leads to their pregnancy. If it's the same type of country that, say, charges medical bills for a lot of things, that one bit of lack of education can steamroll and turn into not only a child that might not be best cared for, but also parents that will now be in debt to a given hospital or clinic. So then they're not only starting at zero, they're starting at -4. Or say another one, escalation of any violence, state violence and other violence outside of, like, say, police. If there's such a tension in a given community that one little misunderstanding can lead to a shootout, I think this is a better sign, because it's not only a case of how well we can prevent anything from happening, but more, if something bad happens, do we actually have the tools and the knowledge and the willingness to actually try and solve these issues? Of course, something like police brutality comes up quite easily in one of these examples, where do these police who are trained, like, are they trained firstly, but do these police actually have any focus in training period over de-escalation, for example, or the importance of not overusing resources, or trying to examine their prejudices against a given group? But yeah, I think turbulence also relates to, say, the idea of political, one of the, let's say, core ideas of political philosophy, examining the A to the B, and looking at what assets we had here, and then seeing what assets we may have or lost or gained at a later date. There's actually a wonderful bit off topic, but there's a wonderful, like, post that examines the characters of Game of Thrones in this manner, which is pretty good read. Obviously, spoilers. Obviously, I'm actually quite excited for season 9 after no lifing the show. But we'll use that as an example. At the beginning of that summer, 2017, I just got a degree. I didn't have a lot of experience. But say at the end of that summer, I came back home from Belgium after teaching English in a summer camp, right? So simple one of A to B. So I started at A with like maybe £25 in my account. And then at B, I was on a much nicer budget of, £250 in my account, which is, when you live in London, meaningless. But that's another thing. It's like comparing where you are and the circumstances you go through, like paying £1.50 to get on the bus, or food not being as cheap as, say, in China. In that same way, I think maybe it's a really good way to examine our lives, say year on year, from a political philosophy point of view. Like, what assets, what skills did you have, or what level of skill did you have this, like, last year, and compare them to what you have now? Have you lost money? Have you gone further into it? Have you gained a lot? Have you gained experiences as a trade-off? Relating this back to just bigger countries. What have we traded off? What have we gained? What have we lost? I'll give an example. John Cleese, Monty Python. John Cleese. I should know his name. John Cleese, I believe. Obviously, he mentioned a thing with, say, the Olympic bid. Obviously, very nice. He paraphrasing, it's like very nice. That the multi-ethnicities held push for the Olympic bid in London 2012. But then he brought the other side of, the lack of ethnic English people in London, for example. One of my reactive responses is, we look at the price of houses and how many generations of people can live in a relative box. I mean, we're talking like middle to lower income people. How many relative can people live in, effectively a box or a relatively small house, or, council housing isn't chill for everyone. Yeah, so from that, naturally, a lot of people who do have 2 or 3 plus generations here probably would have looked to move somewhere else, maybe up north. Once you go above, say, Birmingham, I mean, it's still quite white. Or, I've seen I think we kind of looked at this in linguistics, the migration of the migration of the Cockney accent going towards the east. So when I was studying in Canterbury, you heard the same thing. Anyway, I was going back to relate this to the fact that often the trade-offs happen like that, where maybe there's that slight drop of what we call like quintessential British culture within England, and how past few decades it's quite morphed a bit. You've gone from say, look at the age of Monty Python in the 70s. Think of London then, and maybe it still was closer to, just post-colonial kind of vibe. Yeah, we get all these fine fabrics and cute things, and oh, look, a black person, or look, Windrush generation. Comparing Windrush generation and the 2 generations after that, where now the kids of that Windrush generation are now in the top 40, or now starting to get into major jobs in media. But yeah, it's quite a tangent. But key thing was the idea of trade-offs, and how much are we willing to trade off? How much are we willing to prioritize down a certain path? It's what I see socialism as. How much are we willing to provide for people? How much are we willing to really prioritize public funding? In times where it's good, the things are good and we might not need to, but then also in times where we actually have to be prepared to catch a lot of people who are going to fall through the cracks in, say, deeper economic hardship, or, general social unrest, the amount of people that don't feel safe walking down the streets, whether it be those who just perceive an entire group of people as unsafe, or just people who actually are truly at risk, and the middle ground between that. But yeah, overall, to look at a given group of people when they're struggling, there's also the other side of what values, what ideas, what strengths still still persist. See, despite the fact that I can't speak, I can still pull out a few polysyllabic words, if maybe four in a row. Anyway, but yeah, what strengths persist? What strengths did I persist while being in China? I've still had moments of being creative at work, despite the fact that it was rough. I still had moments where I was able to push myself to learn something new, like building a new PC or something. In the same way, we can look at, say, okay, we'll go for an easy British example during the Blitz. Like, maybe a good question will be to ask what type of arts were being produced, or what type of general produce that wasn't war related, non-gun or non-food to be sent abroad. What was being created? What things were still being innovated just in the general public sphere, outside of the cacophony around them, if that's even possible. I'd say in some manners it can be, especially when you can get quite isolationist in like a tiny community. Yeah. Generally, I feel this is very important to look at, not only from the angle of, is it even important to rate a country, and how much, what can we heap praise on, what ought we be doing, but also what ought we not trade off, what are the things that are too valuable to trade off and are too valuable to not at least make that little 5-10 minutes in the day for. Like, if you love playing the guitar, keep playing, no matter what. Doesn't matter if you're about to be fired, keep playing. If you, enjoy reading, find that time, slap in 15 minutes on the bus. I think turbulence, passion, resilience, it's like a circle, like the Holy Trinity, like through turbulence. Yeah, if you have this passion and resilience, naturally there's going to be cycles of hardship, but honestly, they ought not matter if there are things you can still prioritize and things you can still gain. It's getting all motivational speaking right now, but yeah, turbulence. I'll say it again. How do we as individuals get through it? How do we as individuals work together with people around us? Are we willing to ask for help? Are nations willing to ask for help? Leaning on to nations. How do these groups of people actually deal with things? Is it through austerity measures, or is it through saying we got to really prioritize these things, and no matter what, we got to hold on to certain things, like let's really make sure we prioritize, say, healthcare and education, so that no matter what, we actually have something worth saving in 6 years' time, for example. Yeah, I would say running a country is difficult, but passion, maybe some empathy, maybe some resilience, maybe some something else, maybe something as consistent as eating porridge every day. Can you see the porridge? Yeah, I become a massive porridge eater. It's getting ridiculous, honestly. Like, I just can't stop with the porridge. It's just porridge everywhere.